So comparison has impacted me in many different ways. It has affected my life before my financial journey. As a lot of my readers know, I dealt with self-confidence issues. And those self-confidence issues stemmed from comparing myself to others, which then led to spending triggers, which led to bad spending habits. It was kind of like a trickle effect. So for me in the very beginning, I was not comfortable in my own skin. I didn't like the way that I looked. I was constantly looking at other people, the way other girls looked, and saying, I want to look like that, or I want that. And it would cause me to go out and spend money that I knew deep down in my gut I didn't have. On my financial journey, and when I really started sharing that with the world, in the very beginning, it felt a lot of the times, it felt defeating when I saw other people making more progress than me. I'm like, well, wait a minute. If they're doing that, how come this isn't attainable in my own life? Why isn't it working out like that for me on my financial journey? It felt discouraging a lot of the times. But I think that for me, the first step was bringing that awareness into my life of that's what I was doing, right? I finally was able to admit out loud that I was comparing myself to others, and I was able to address the issues from there. I think it's really easy. It's an easy way out. Comparing yourself to others allows you to address the other person's situations rather than looking at our own. We would rather see someone's successes. We would rather see someone fail rather than looking at the strength and weaknesses in our own lives. I think too that a lot of the time we turn to people for motivation. We turn to people for hope. And sometimes that turns into comparison. There's a difference between looking at someone for motivation and looking at someone to compare yourself to. Because what happens most of the time, we compare our weaknesses to other people's strengths. And those things aren't comparable in the slightest. So I think it's easy, especially with social media. It's thrown in our faces every single day. The way other people's houses look, the way that, other people dress, the way that people, especially with all the beauty bloggers, the way that someone has their hair done, and the way their makeup is doing. And it may sound silly. And the funny thing is I didn't even realize I was comparing and doing this in my own life in the very beginning until I started asking those hard questions about why I was spending the money that I was. So I think it's multiple factors on why we tend to compare. I realized that comparing myself to others was in my life probably about a year and a half into my financial journey. So around, I was doing it all through college, all through high school, but it wasn't something that I was truly aware of until probably 2011, 2012. And for the first time in my life, when I was forced to sit down and write my very first budget, not only was my food budget a slap in the face for me, but my clothing. I realized that I had a problem with buying clothes, and all of a sudden the question became, well, why? Why do I need the same shirt in 8 different colors? Or why do I need this particular brand when I don't necessarily know or like that brand? So when I started asking those hard questions about my spending, that's when I started to become aware that I was comparing myself. Oh, 100%. I felt a difference the moment I made a conscious effort to stop myself from comparing myself to others. So the main area that I found the most significant difference when I stopped comparing was just the level of peace that I found in my life. But not only that, the confidence that I found, not just in myself, not just in the financial decisions I was making, but the confidence in the way that I looked, the confidence that I had as a mom, all the things, all the negativity that was brought into my life by comparing myself to others. When that stopped, all of a sudden I became thankful for what I had. It was no longer of, why don't I look like that? Or why aren't I making the progress that that person is making? All of a sudden it became, I was looking at my own strengths. I'm making this progress today in my own life. I'm doing this really well as a mom. My house, I love this little aspect about my house. I stopped phrasing the question of, why can't I be like that? Why can't I do that? Why can't I look like that? And instead, I started asking, wait a minute, okay. Especially on my financial journey, it became not, why aren't I succeeding as well as that person? All of a sudden I started asking the question like, awesome, that person is making amazing progress on their financial journey. What are the steps that they're doing to get there? And can I implement some of those steps in my own life? I think that the way that I phrased my questions when looking at other people's financial journeys really did help. So I think that when you compare versus looking to someone for motivation, when you compare yourself to others, what happens is you reach this level of resentment. You resent that person in some way when you're comparing yourself to them, especially on your financial journey. And you do that without even knowing the true person. And it's funny because I dealt with comparing myself to others, and now on the other end of it, I see it all the time in my community, in the debt-free community, where so much of the time I see other people comparing their numbers, progress, and success to other people. And what happens, instead of celebrating with that person in their success and what they're accomplishing in their lives, and using that as inspiration and fuel to drive what we're doing in our own lives, all of a sudden it becomes this moment of resentment, and that's really sad to see. So I think the difference between looking for someone for motivation and that comparing, in some small way, resentment works its way into the equation. So if you are dealing with the effects of comparing yourself to others, so maybe you're dealing with low confidence, or you're dealing with low drive or motivation, or you have a decrease in feeling hope for what you're doing, these are my tips to help you, especially if you find yourself dealing with those effects. So my first tip is bringing awareness into your life. Just much like tracking your spending and the awareness of where every dollar goes, bringing awareness into comparing yourself to others, because here's the thing, comparing yourself to others is a natural act. We almost do it without actually realizing we're doing it. So once we bring that awareness and really make that a point to recognize, then I think that's when we can deal with the actual issue. So my second step would be stopping yourself. And I know that's a lot easier said than done, but here's the thing, because once you bring that awareness into your life that that's what you're doing, it's going to be really hard not to notice that's what you're doing. And so at that time, you can actually stop yourself and say, wait a minute. Okay, I'm comparing myself in this way. How can I make this a more productive, more positive type of situation that I put myself into? So maybe you're looking at you just saw someone pay off $10,000 of debt, and you were only able to pay off $50 of debt. Instead of saying, I'll never be able to do that, or gosh, I'm not making that same type of progress. Am I doing something wrong? Instead say, wow, That's a lot of debt. What are the steps that they took to get there? And if those steps aren't readily available, maybe reach out to them and say, hey, you made some really amazing progress. I would like to implement that in my own life. What are some of the things that I can do? So you need to stop yourself when you find yourself comparing yourself to others. So my third step would be count your blessings. And this is something that I have worked really, really hard in my own life, being thankful for what I have. I may not have what they have. I may not have what she has. I may not be making the progress they are, but boy, I'm counting my blessings today and I'm thankful for what I have and the success that I am reaching in my own life. Next is focusing on your strengths. So like I had mentioned, every time it seems like when we compare ourselves, what do? We compare our weaknesses to someone else's strengths. And so it's really important that you focus on your own strengths rather than just the weaknesses. Next is be okay with imperfection. So it's really funny because a couple days ago we posted a YouTube video and I was literally missing a nail on one of my hands. And before we did the video, I'm like, should I paint it really fast so it's not as noticeable? Or should I actually glue on another nail just for this video? And I was kind of freaking out about it, right? Because my hands, a lot of the time, are in my YouTube videos. And you know what? I said no. I'm moving into a new home. I'm picking up boxes. I'm doing my thing. This is just what it is. And I'm okay with that. And I left it. And throughout the whole video, the only thing you saw was on my one hand, all my nails were red except one. And a reader reached out to me in a comment and she said, Miko, I was so glad to see that in your YouTube video today, you were missing a nail. And it made me feel like you're not just some robot, some perfect person on the internet. You're a real person. And that comment made me so happy. And I was really happy about the decision I made to not try to be perfect in my YouTube videos. Embrace perfection. Being a mom, you're not going to be perfect. Your life is not going to be perfect. Everything is not going to be perfect. It's real life. And you have to embrace those ups and downs and those struggles and the messiness of life. And I think once you kind of wrap your head around that and just accept those imperfections, a whole new level of happiness is brought into your life at that point. My last step would be focus on your own journey. Life is not about where you rank compared to others. It's not a competition. Especially if you're working on your own financial journey, this is not a race. This is a journey, a self-discovery journey, and you have to go at your own pace. You have to be happy with your level of success that you are finding on that journey. You know, it's funny when we talk about this topic of comparing yourself to others. When I first started the Budget Mom and the TBM family community, not only did I want it to be a safe place to talk about finances and for it to be a non-judgmental space, I really wanted it to be a place where people could celebrate their wins. Because now all of a sudden when I've changed my mindset, I'm aware that I used to, that I was comparing myself to others. All of a sudden, it's really inspirational to see other people's successes and wins. It's fun to celebrate with them in that success. And that's really what I want my TBM family to be about. I want people to know that there's hope. I want people to see that other people are reaching their goals and are finding success. Because once you see that done in someone else's life, all of a sudden, there's hope that you can do it too. And it's just really important that we don't compare someone else's success to ours.